And welcome back, my brother.
I am actually feeling immensely amazing at the moment. So
Yeah,
I've got
for
a good
sure.
feeling about this pod. I'm feeling fresh in the head. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, man, you were gone for a week or so on your retreat, which we'll get into, which seemed
Yes.
exciting. It seemed enlightening, liberating, cleansing,
All
rebirthing,
of those
all the
things.
above.
All of those things.
You were
No,
doing
it was
drops on
wonderful.
the tongue before dinner, eating soups like 6 times a day. It was
Yep.
it
Yep.
was a pretty
Full
magical experience. It
detox.
looked like, but
Full
something top of
cleanse.
mind I wanted to jump into that's interesting. That's just at the top of my mind. We can just touch on this briefly. But have you seen Ed Sheeran's new song, his Azizam record?
Look, I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on here. I saw a video pop up with a very, very angry Persian lady screaming at the camera on TikTok the other day. Um,
That's hilarious.
and I just wasn't quite in the mood for her level of aggression.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
I will defer to you on this one.
Yeah,
So, what
so
is the situation here?
so Azizam is a Farsi term that means like my beloved, my dear, like sweetheart. It's a very endearing, affectionate term that's used between couples. It's used from like a parent to a child. It's a sweet phrase, you know?
Hmm.
It's what you would say to your significant other if you're like addressing her or calling her or him or whatever it is. And Ed Sheeran worked with a very prominent producer, Ilya, who has done some of the biggest records in the world. Ariana Grande, Side to Side. He's worked with Weekend. He's done some of like the biggest ones. He was Max Martin's, companion for a little while. Ran with him. Super talented, immensely talented producer. Has like a gang of number ones under him, and I guess they were in the studio and they were messing around and Ed Sheeran wanted to kind of just mess around with some different cultural themes and whatnot, and really fell in love with this song. And he said that he dedicated to his wife, who ironically is not Persian, but I guess just wanted to come up with a new way to write a love song for her. Also said that his record "Perfect," which is like the great one of the greatest love songs ever, was also written and inspired by her. But they've been doing a massive promotional push for it. He's performing everywhere all over the world. They like put these hearts up all around these major cities with Azizam written in it. And it's a big moment for the culture. Persians are extremely prideful as a culture and as a people. And they are running with this one. And the thing that I can guarantee you is this song is going to be played at every Persian party and wedding for the next 25 years, without a doubt. Like, it's
So,
one of those things that Persians love anytime someone tries to do any type of like cultural reference or homage. And he brought legends into the music video. He did a remix with a legendary Persian artist named Gugush. She's like the like Celine Dion of like the industry, like a bona fide legend, certified legend. And he actually attempted to sing a version in Farsi on the remix, which I don't know if that was Farsi, but it was a great attempt at least, and I give him an A for effort. But it was cool to see. It's just an interesting thing for me to observe, and how crazy hard he's going with it was like very interesting to me.
it's so interesting because I've only seen the dark side of it, which is all the people debating cultural appropriation.
Yeah, that's of course that's gonna come up. That's just like
So, and as someone who's Persian, how do you feel about that? I don't get the sense that's what. Do you feel like he's doing it to make the song big as a marketing play, or do you
no.
feel like this is just a sound that he's really enjoyed and wanted
Yeah,
to put his
I
spin
mean,
on it? Like, what's the
I think
feels?
I think it's a great homage to the
Yeah.
culture. Like I looked at it, and me personally, I viewed it as a very progressive moment. You know, it shines a light on a particular part of the world which I don't think has gotten its justice served to it appropriately. Persian music is traditionally written in the measure of 6/8, right? Which is very dance driven. It's an emotional scale and it's beautiful compositions. Like some of the greatest musicianship that I've ever heard in my life, literally, not even being biased, comes from Middle Eastern music because the scales are so intricate, the instrumentation is so beautiful. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a very progressive moment for the culture. I thought it was something that was very cool. I did not look at it at all. And it seems like, yes, if there's going to be like a dark, sentiment to it, it maybe comes from like traditionalists who are maybe a little bit more grounded in those principles. But everybody that I know in Los Angeles, which is like half of LA, is Persian, right? It's like Arad, a few major directors, people that I know were praising it and absolutely loving the moment. I thought it was amazing, man. I think Ed Sheeran is one of those creators who's so incredibly versatile that he has no restrictions or doesn't hold back on what he thinks is a creative expression. And in a couple of his interviews, he touched on the fact that he thought that there was so many similarities between Iranian, which is Persian culture, and Irish culture. And for his music video, it's like him falling into like a Persian wedding, and it's like really funny. And he mentioned how there was so many similarities that he picked up on that video shoot. He was like, wow, the cultures actually blend a lot more than I thought it would. And I don't look at it any other way. Like if you're going to go for a quote unquote like money grab or to try and make the song bigger, like why wouldn't he do like a Latin song or like something that actually is going to be more commercially viable? You understand? That would be my logic behind it. I looked at it as a great moment of progression for the culture, to be honest. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think, music is one of those things where I don't know if you can slap the cultural appropriation side on it because it's music.
Yeah.
There's different styles, different like vibes that come from different parts of the world. Maybe they originated there, but the same thing can originate in two places at once.
Yeah.
So, and then taking that and then applying something else and taking bits of inspiration. And, at the end of the day, we're living in a world where everything's been done.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can do now is combine multiple elements together.
Yeah.
Because everything singularly has been done. So I think
Yeah.
it's like I think it's necessary. I think this shit's good. you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
this cross pollination of cultures and this sort of, it's better than him only doing things that are
Yeah.
associated with Irish or white culture.
Yeah, 100%.
Like-
100%.
It's I think you're damned when you're that size. You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because
100%.
if he was to keep it all in house, everyone would say, well, he never addresses anything of a larger
Yeah.
stature, or he doesn't do anything with whatever. But like, the guy's super well loved in the black hip hop UK scene.
Yeah, for sure. He's invited to the
and-
barbecue, as they say.
Yeah, 100%. Like he's like an interesting figure in culture.
Yeah.
He's one of the only people that caps the price of his tickets for all of his tours.
Yeah.
He's like, I get the feeling that he's actually a real one.
Yeah. Yeah. And to present a fair question, right? It may be a little sticky subject. Isn't like all music, in a sense, teeter on cultural appropriation of sorts? Like when we talk about
Totally.
the fusion of R&B and hip hop and pop, like when you have someone like Adam Levine saying lyrics of like, just roll that backwood up, baby, like he's not writing that shit. Or when you have someone like Justin Bieber encompassing the R&B the way that he does, and he's creating with culturally diverse individuals, but they're using him as the poster child. Or to even reference old Eminem lyrics, there's like a famous Eminem lyric where he says, I'm not the first king of controversy, I am the worst thing since Elvis Presley, to do black music so selfishly and use it to make myself wealthy, right? And it's like,
Damn.
that's an actual Eminem lyric, right? So it's like, what are we talking about here? Like, he's not blatantly coming out and be like, oh, like, let's do this what it is. I think it was like a form of creative expression. And if you're gonna ask the question, like, isn't all music a fusion of that, like, in one way or another? Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think people are just way too fucking sensitive and have way too much time on their hands, to be honest with you. Everybody
I
wants to vocalize an opinion. That doesn't really matter.
I agree. I think we're in this weird predicament right now where um, people are not threatened enough to, people's problems are not big enough. So they make big problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's happened a lot. And that's a perfect example of this. Like, the only things that I've seen about it on TikTok haven't been positive, you know? And that's my TikTok, you know? So I think if your TikTok is saying it's positive, then that's probably a better reflection of how, you know, people are feeling that should be offended, you know? If they so desire, you know, that's the choice, you know, but
Whatever.
it's a wild, it's a wild time in the world.
It is a wild time in the world. And speaking of the TikTok content feeds, have you seen this this blitz from China on the direct to consumer angle that you touched on last episode?
I would like to call this out.
DHgate app, by the way, is #2 on the App Store now. So it's like I feel like the era of like people legitimately believing that people own luxury items is over, by the way. Like, everybody that you see that's going to be carrying something around, like, subconsciously or in the back of their mind, they're going to think like, oh, like, that's a fake, you know? That's
well,
what
now,
I believe.
like, you've got this, you know, and this is the thing that I think like is being a little missed. I think that you've got a significant portion of America that despises Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Despises him on an immensely deep level.
Yeah.
And will do anything they can, including making their own existence and life more challenging, to suppress any good he is planning or potentially capable of doing.
Yeah.
So, and when you allow that to take place on a platform that is Chinese run and operated, you have this conflict. Now, on the other side, last week, I said that my biggest concern, and I think, you know, everybody who is economically sound has been laying out how this is a genius plan from Trump and how, you know, this is like a you know, playing chess, not checkers type move. And my response was, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And now you've got some of the largest companies in the world, like LVMH, going to Trump saying, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You poked the motherfucking bear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
sure.
now look at our stock price, fuckhead.
Yeah.
You know,
Plummeting.
so the very people that he's been out there protecting are now starting to go, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
On the other side of it, you have Americans sitting there going, well, I can now make a buck. I can buy these bags for $100 and I can import them. But even if they put the tariff in, I'm still clearing decent cash and I can sell it locally in America and be a TikTok affiliate. So what everybody's got to start to comprehend is, you know, what is China planning on doing? Take a bird's eye view and really take a step back and go, what's their plan here? Because they're telling you their plan. They've told you their plan. Like they're not doing anything in secret. Everything's public. Everything's out there.
Oh yeah.
You know, whenever they've got to say something about Australia, whenever they've got to say something about anywhere, they're making that clear. You know, and I think we've just got to be a little bit more aware of what's happening here. And what's happening is they have a plan to rip the guts out of the American economy, and they are willing to do it at any cost necessary. And they have a longer time horizon than America. America has to continue to fall in line with this election cycle. And they've got midterms and they've got social pressures. China's like, look, if half the country starves for the next 10 years, that's what we've got to do to be on number one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really, really hard way to play.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
you're playing a different game. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you're out there trying to score goals in the first half, and because you're not allowed to play the second half, whereas China's sitting there like full squad ready to go, backup bench ready to go, and they're ready to run it for the
Yeah,
second
for
half, and
sure.
you've got no one to do it. So like it's a very very interesting, I think, turn of events, and I
Yes.
think China's going to keep. And let's not forget, they're just doing this for one sector.
Yeah.
They can pick off Dyson. They can
Everywhere.
pick off like every single. They've got the blueprints for all of these products.
Of course, which they've already duplicated and replicated. Like the it's it was one of those things where for the longest time, like it was just the copycat method where they would just, they would make a product that's popular globally or in the Western culture, and they would make it with cheaper parts, more efficiently, quicker, and sell it at a quarter of the price. Now, China is at the forefront of the innovation. You understand? So now they're
Yeah.
creating products that are better than anything that American consumers can actually obtain or purchase. And they're still banging it out for a tenth of the price now, whether it's the BYD mentions or whether it's home goods, appliances, electronics, like anything. Like they haven't even caught up. They've superseded and like literally are on the cutting edge of innovation with everything that they do. All the stuff that you see coming out of from China is fucking dope, to be honest with you. And it's like, if you want to
Yeah.
remodel your house and you want the craziest, what I sent you the other day, the shower sauna combination, like
Yeah.
all these things that they're doing that you literally could get for a quarter of the price. Like there was a an influencer on TikTok that I saw, and she does like home renovations and flips, and she talked about how for one bathroom remodel she got quoted at $52,000. Okay. And she flew to China herself, set up meetings herself with these companies. She went in, she purchased everything that she wanted for her kitchen remodel, her bathroom remodel, like all floorboards, installed a couple custom walls, like a whole bunch of shit. With shipping to her front door, it was $28,000 for all of that.
Yeah.
Literally all
And
of that.
and let's say 150% tariff gets slapped on that.
Well,
Still fucking cheaper.
now it's 245. But essentially, what Trump did is he gave some exemptions to certain sectors that he knew was going to fucking bury the American consumer if he didn't. So he gave his final retaliation of a 245% tariff. China responded and said, we're not playing this fucking game. Okay, like this is ridiculous. Like this is gonna destroy economies. Like we're not doing this. Trump, surprisingly, followed up and said, you know what? It has to cap here. Like we may even start pulling this back. He said, because at a certain point, people are just gonna stop buying shit, right? So I feel like this little proxy trade war that they're running is coming to its conclusion. This, excuse my language, but this dick measuring contest that he's trying to do has kind of run its course. And, he paused a majority of the tariffs for 90 days outside of China. He just kept it rolling on China.
I just don't think he has time to do that.
Nah,
it's
and I
wild.
think it's one of those things where I said this on our last episode, but I think by June time we start seeing what the resolutions to all of this is.
All
I
I
don't think there's
know
any other
is
way
right
around it.
now, quietly, larger brand, well, actually three larger brands that are living in America right now are months away from having to shut their doors because they can't run a plan for the rest of the year for import-export for their clothing lines for spring, fall, winter collections because they don't know what's happening.
No, they
So-
don't know what they're spending.
They don't know what they're spending. Now this extra, like they were saying, we would have rathered if he just held his fucking line and did what he said he was going to do. At least we know what the tariffs are. But right now we don't know what's happening. So do we order clothes or do we not? Do we
Yeah.
rip it back or do we put it forward? Do we try and find someone onshore or do we find someone offshore? Like,
Yeah.
you can't plan as a company until you know what the rules are.
Yeah.
So they can't go and build a manufacturing plant here.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't go and build a manufacturing plant in America until they know that's what they have to do.
Yeah, for sure.
They can't run the cost benefit analysis on these things until the plan is in place. And I think that's what I'm hearing from founders is you're fucking me harder by playing this game right now, and you're going to lose some of the middle line of these obviously the Nvidias and stuff like that. Nvidia is another conversation. They can go jump off a fucking nearest cliff as well. But like there's like a big wave of this like middle run, you know, 50 to 150 million dollar companies that are sitting there going, fuck, like, do we import our nuts and bolts that we need to do to build our whatever? Or what are we doing here? The tractors, the this, like there's so many categories of businesses that are in a holding pattern that can't afford to be because of how far ahead they have to think on import export. And a 3-month hold is a big, big, big hurdle for them. And I think that's where I always come at it from. I think from a holistic standpoint, I think I get the strategy, I get the plan. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to, like, is he going to float those entities? Like, what's going to happen there? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all in all, I think on paper, as I said, plan's great. Punch in the face, things change.
Yeah.
You know?
This is a kick in the nuts.
Yeah, and it just feels a little bit like this is like becoming a bit of like an off script play a little. And now like the 3 months feels like what? How did you come up with that? Like, was that always part of it doesn't feel like it was like calculated. It feels impulsive, and impulsiveness when the whole global economy is running off these decisions is wild.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's when it starts to get a little shaky in my mind.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And talking about holistic feels, why don't you give us a little summary of what your recent experience was, where you were, where you went, what was it called, what is it, what the fuck were you doing, what were the drops, what was in the soup, how many miles a day were you running, were you sleeping upside down in like fucking space pods, what was going on, man?
All of that. No, it's so to full context. I live in Germany, and I work exclusively with Americans. You know, maybe one of the 6 new people listening to this podcast is like unaware. You know, yeah. So I live in Germany, but I work mostly with America. So as a result, my private life at times takes a bit of a hit. My wife spends multiple hours a day with a voodoo doll poking me with a stick in the eye.
That's fucking hilarious.
Due to how lack of availability I sometimes have around seeing friends and stuff like that. But such is life.
Yes.
I just could feel about a month ago that I was like, it was getting heavy. Weight was getting heavy.
It was reaching a boiling point of sorts.
Yeah, just the late nights, the 3 o'clock in the morning runs, and then trying to get up in the morning to be a remotely healthy human with a gym, shit like that. So essentially, my wife was like, look, we're going off and doing this fucking retreat thing.
Which was in honor of your birthday, right?
Yeah. In my head, it was like, this is stupidly large waste of time, but whatever. You know, it was my kind of initial energies towards it. Was like, I don't know where I'm going to find the time for this, but we'll see. But long story short, we go to this place. It's called Maya Life. It's arguably
in Austria, right?
In Austria. Yeah, okay. Just outside Salzburg. It's arguably, and by most people's opinion in the wellness space, it's the best medical resort in the world. They do everything. They have everything. They're insane.
Reputationally, you mean?
Reputationally and quality-wise, it's very, very high-end. So essentially what happens is you arrive and you begin this process called the cure, which kind of sounds a little bit like a cult. but it is the process. When you arrive, you get your blood taken. Here we go. This is where the cult shit real starts. You get your blood taken, you get a urine sample, and they take those samples and they essentially build a plan for you food wise. So perfectly curated portion sizes, perfectly curated macros for your desired diet based on what you're inefficient in. They go all over your biomarkers. They even look at your like hereditary gene makeup.
How
They
long
go
does it
into
take
everything.
for them to get the results of the blood samples and all that stuff back?
Next day, like
Jesus.
morning of. They
Got
do
it.
it all in house, and they've got private chefs there that are just like whipping out customized food left, right, and center. And you go through this process, and it's difficult at the beginning. You got a very minimal amount of food, and for a 6'4", 6'3", 100 and fucking, I just gave myself an extra inch then, but 6'3", 100 kilo dude, that's not fun. But it was good. And the first couple of days, you're feeling like shit. You're going to doctor's appointments. You're seeing therapists. You're going physical therapy. You're getting massages twice a day. You're like going and doing cryo chambers. Like a lot of shit I didn't even know was happening to me was that booked in. And it's intense. And it's the process of you being the project. And it's almost like forced self-evaluation, which was a very necessary experience for me at this present time, and was one of the things I didn't really anticipate that I needed until I did it. Another example of why my wife is typically always right. And yeah, it was incredible. It was amazing. Did aqua classes every day. It was on this fucking beautiful lake, so pure you can literally put your bottle of water in it and drink out of it. It was just like literally one of the top 5 air qualities in the world. It's insane. It's just an insane part of the universe. And it was one of the best experiences of my life in terms of a hotel resort or holiday. It was like the most value for time ratio you could receive. I learned so much about myself. Overall it was a really, really strong reset. Lost 6 kilos, which I don't even know what the fuck that is for your people.
I think it's like 11 and a half or 12 pounds, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that. You know, just lost a lot of weight. And it was good for Elle and I. We spent a shitload of time together. We spent a lot of time thinking, planning, conjuring up future possibilities for ourselves, in the right mindset, in the right headspace.
You were checked out. You were checked out for a majority of the time.
Yeah, I was offline pretty much. You got limited time on your phone. And it was just a great experience overall, and felt fresh as a fucking daisy.
Is the
when I
limited
left.
time on your phone at like their discretion? Like, do they advise when you have like phone
Yeah,
hours?
you've got, and like, let's be clear, you've got like, there was 7 people that I saw that everybody in the world would know. Like there's big fucking names there. You know, high profile people, a lot of business leaders, a lot of like senior finance people, like helicopter pads there for people whipping in and out, like assistants grinding away in the lobby while, their bosses doing their thing for themselves. Like there's just a very like, it's the high caliber, like the people that I met in saunas and the conversations that were had in saunas were fucking epic. To be honest, like there was it was a really that was also a whole other side tangent, cool experience, was just having an insight into people that are running $3 billion companies. Yeah,
for sure.
And just
priceless
especially at this
networking
time,
opportunity.
It was really, really strong. So it was amazing. And I think, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit today was, I think often as people, we think a lot about what we want, and we constantly review and audit where we're at on the cycle of what we want. But I think very rarely do we clearly define what that is for us to be checking in on. And I had a list of questions that I asked myself every day in varying orders. And I'm going to read those questions out now so that we can see if everybody's doing this and I'm just new to the fucking party, or if is something that could help anybody else. So if money and status was no object, what would you do?
Mm.
What am I hiding from myself the most?
Mm.
If I was less afraid of other people's opinions, what would I say?
Wow.
What emotions am I not prepared to feel? What
Wow.
is my definition of success? What actually makes me happy? Whose approval do I seek today? What is the biggest irrational fear I'm holding back from?
Wow.
Every single day I asked myself these questions and
Wow.
I was getting different answers.
Wow.
And
Is that
until
questions that you drew up yourself, or is this something that they give you to?
no, it was not something they gave me. I was just it was just
Those
a
are
stuff
powerful
that
questions.
I've always just thought of in the back of my head and stuff. But then when I was with the therapist there, I was like, look, I'm asking these questions, and then she helped me reword them to be a little bit more cutting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like, give me less outs, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. That stops you in your tracks, and a couple of
Yeah.
those questions make you stop
And you've got, and
contemplate.
I think the biggest lesson for me was one day I would have that answer. I'd be like, I completely know whose approval I seek. And then the next day rolls around, and then some other motherfucker's in my head,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So you can think you've got it until you can constantly ask yourself the same question and just see if it intuitively comes to mind the same thing every time or not. But I think the biggest one that I think is really unlocking is identifying what your biggest irrational fears are. You know, and closely behind that, whose approval you're seeking. Because sometimes even the most powerful intentions that somebody has for you, whether it's a family member, whether it's your partner, whoever, they have pure intentions, but the outcomes they're desiring for you are not your outcomes.
Yeah.
So if you're seeking that approval, you're running a filter over every move that you could potentially be making in your life, and you're running that filter for someone else's dreams and goals and aspirations. And you know, one of the things that came up when I was doing therapy there, which I thought was really fucking interesting, was there you had no choice in your parents having you.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't owe them anything.
Mm-mm.
They poured into your cup and they created you for their reasons, not for yours.
Mm-hmm.
You were a product of their life,
Mm-hmm.
not the other way. So because I have a huge guilt issue, it's one of my biggest challenges is I've moved away from a family I'm incredibly close to.
Yeah,
I moved away from Australia.
And as an only child.
And as an only child. So I moved away, and as a result, I feel guilt for that decision, and I'm constantly going, should I go back home just to check in with everyone, or should I do this, or should I do that? And I think that's so a lot of what I was working through when I was there was like, what is the correct balance there? You know, what is the right way to navigate my life without, you know, allowing guilt to lead my decisions, and allowing irrational fears that I might be having to be stopped, and for me to start to actually get a real clear idea of what I actually want, and to build a better connection between, you know, mind body connection decisions, and being able to trust that gut a little better. And I think that was one of the biggest things that came out of the trip was just getting really fucking clear on the answer to some of these questions, and allowing it to guide where I put my energy now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was the wildness of this last week.
No, that's pretty incredible, bro. It sounds like a very transformative and enlightening experience, you know, something that I'm very much looking forward to being able to experience myself. And
Yeah.
you touched on a particular point that resonated with me heavy that kind of correlates back to an experience that I had when you said, you know, your parents really don't owe you anything. They granted you the greatest blessing ever and the gift of life and the conscious experience that we get to embark on, you know. And when I did you know, a medicinally induced quote unquote healing journey for myself, it was one of the things that came to the forefront of my mind when I had blasted off into another realm, you know? It I had visions of my mother, very vivid visions of my mother being pregnant with me, and it was like this settlement of a thought that dawned on me of she did her job. She gave me the greatest gift of all time, and that was the gift of life, right? And literally, beyond the moment of pushing me out and feeding me and allowing me to prosper and develop consciously, she does not owe me anything. My parents do not owe me anything. Anything that comes after that moment is nothing but a giant blessing and a cherry on top in every which way, you know. So I think it's an interesting correlation that comes and
But it also
establishes
goes
itself.
back the other way. You don't owe them anything either.
That's powerful too. That's
You know?
powerful too.
You can want to, you can desire to.
Yeah.
You know, if you get to the point where you're making decisions to go and support them, look after them, care for them, and that's coming from a place that's not an irrational fear or not an expectation that they've put upon you. It's an expectation that you've put upon you, and you know that's the decision that you've made in your heart of hearts. Then that's completely fine. But I think I was, and a lot of other people I think are, making decisions out of an irrational fear that their parents may not love them if they don't go back and visit, that their parents are going to turn on them if they don't support them however they want to be supported, you know? And I think that there's something to that exchange going both ways and that acknowledgement going both ways instead of just taking the pressure off your parents and saying they don't owe you anything. You got to also fucking take the pressure off you, or not you, like everybody has to stop taking the pressure off themselves and say, I don't owe them anything either. Do I want to do something? Sure. You know, but at the end of the day, I think, and they brought you didn't go birth me, mum. You didn't make that choice. You know, and every moment from there, it's on them. They decide how much they want to fill your cup. They decide how much they want to put into you. Do they want to put into making the best human that they can within their own limitations and powers create? And then they put into that cup, and then that's something that they're doing for them.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's something we miss sometimes with parents is like, they want you to have a good life often for them. You know, you're separate entities, you're separate figures. I'm immensely connected to my father. I'm immensely connected to my mother, but I'm also very aware that like, I can't live the life that they want me to live sometimes. That's got to be a decision I make. And I think that we always have like this, whose approval do you seek? The therapist that I was talking to was like 90% of the time, that's a blood relative. You know, like 90% of the time. And the reason why whose approval you seek is so important is, you know, one of the things that kept popping up when I was there was like everybody there, and it was starting to really fucking annoy me. Everyone there says, just listen to your body. And I'm like, well, thanks fucking Captain Obvious, but right now my body doesn't have a voice. Like my finger's not talking to me right now. So like, do you want to help me with that, or you just want to fucking speak in these weird voodoo fucking terms? Like, like how do I hear it? Like how? And they were like, well, you won't that's not going to happen for you yet, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until like day 4 or 5 of the cleansing of just this, like, it was pretty shit. Like, I had such bad fucking back pain. My head was killing, like, just the detox of like getting all the shit that I'd put into my body and the unhealthy decisions that I'd been making leading up, and the lack of sleep, and like the just the
You felt it.
overall.
You felt
I
that
could
shit.
feel it coming out, and like obviously you're literally shitting everywhere, like everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, on walls, on like everywhere. so, so you literally just have
Sounds
like
lovely.
toxic shit exiting your body,
Yeah.
and then come day 4 or 5, you're meant to be there for 2 weeks, and I really wish we went longer. But the it started to get clearer, and I was sitting in the meeting with the doctor that you have every day, and she's like, "How are you
Taking a
feeling?" And she
shit.
goes, "Yeah," she goes, "I can see you're getting to that point where you're able to listen to your body now."
Mm-hmm.
You know. And it's just, and the way she described it, I thought was really smart. She's like, we put things into our body, and all that happens is they scream louder than your actual desire does.
Mm-hmm.
So your actual desire is buried down low,
Mm-hmm.
and you have, in her, like, she's like, treat it a little bit like that movie In and Out, not In and Out, Inside Out,
Inside Out.
Inside
The
Out,
cartoon?
where the Disney thing.
Yeah. Inside
She's
Out.
treat it a little bit like that. Like you've got, but treat it like the elements you're putting in. So caffeine is talking to you. And then, stimulants are talking to you. Dopamine's talking to you. Like all
Wow.
of these elements are communicating, and they're just more angry. They yell louder, and
Wow.
they completely destroy your ability to communicate from your mind to your body.
Wow.
And it's a little bit like when you're dealing with a client, and that client speaks really fucking loud. They may not be the highest paying client and not the one that should be receiving the most love and attention. They're just the fucking loudest idiot in the room.
Wow.
And she's like, that's what's happening with you when you're making those decisions. So like
Wow.
figuring out how you can clear the body out literally, and start to make better calls. I think that's when I started to sort of like realize that there's a much better way of framing a lot of the questions that I've been struggling with, having definitive answers to. All these questions are questions I've asked myself before, and I've like been like, yeah, crush that, great answer, move on. like
Yeah.
tick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd done the tick. Maybe caffeine ticked that, and then
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe a dopamine addiction of doom scrolling ticked that.
Yeah.
But I didn't tick it. I, a full entity, didn't tick that.
Yeah.
And I feel now, like my biggest takeaway is I feel now like I have closer clarity to all of me, from every cell in my body is getting closer to answering the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a very empowering place to be. And I think that's why we're starting to feel a little bit more clarity around where we're heading, because I think, we're getting closer to the truth,
Yes. Absolutely.
of what we're actually desiring. And I think
Absolutely.
that's a super fucking exciting vibe.
That's epic, bro. Two questions. The first part of it is just out of curiosity, what was the drops that you were putting on your tongue before you were having your meals? What the fuck was that? I saw Louisa doing it a
Liquid
bunch.
cocaine. We drop caffeine and we replace it with another addiction. It's what they're about. It's the cure.
Got it.
No, it's a bitter drop. It just helps with digestion. So
Got it.
a
So
lot of what
it starts the digestion process of the initial ingestion through the mouth. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is the first part of the stomach, essentially, that very people lack
and
foresight.
and the other thing that you do when you're there is you chew every mouthful 40 times.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What do you
Every single mouthful.
it disintegrates in your fucking mouth.
Yeah, you're meant to.
It's gone by bite like 30. Chew number 30, 35.
Yeah,
It's
you're
like
meant to swallow
liquid.
soup. You're meant to
Yeah.
swallow soup, essentially.
Got it.
And it assists with digestion a lot.
So
and-
second part of that question ties into what you're actually touching on now. do you see yourself taking habits and things that you learned away from it and actually implementing it into your daily life? Like, have you stayed on top of actually doing shit, or do you feel like you
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like waver and go back
I'm
into Babylon's
I'm
flow?
taking all of the supplements that I was taking when I was there. I like
Mm-hmm.
so it's like a 2 week, 3 week cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You do 1 week there, which is the super intense week, and
Mm-hmm.
then you get a food plan for when you're at home, and then you still have
Mm-hmm.
a check in with the doctor, and then they assist you moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can email or call the doctors at any point now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they're
Mm-hmm.
there to help,
Mm-hmm.
which is sick, by the way,
That's
because
epic.
it's like it's a resort. Typically,
That's
as soon as you
epic.
check out, they're like peace.
Yeah, for sure. For
No,
sure.
but
That's
they're really
actually
helpful.
epic. Yeah.
So
So your
like
your food plan like consists of what they tell you to eat at home and breakfast, lunch,
they
and dinner.
yeah. So you evolve. Like I'm eating more now because like I could not continue to eat what I was eating when I was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What, it was too
their thing,
minimal, or
yeah, it's too low calories. Like it
got it?
wasn't enough food. The reason they do that is in the week. If you're there for 2 weeks, you can eat a little more on week one, but they you have to flush it the fuck out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you just like it's just you can't eat too much because it's all got to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, so essentially, right now I have not had an ounce of sugar. I've not had any caffeine. I have not had any
Really?
carb that has not been on my diet. I'm allowed like fresh rye bread. Everything has to be bio. So the salmon's costing me like $7 million right now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
chicken has to be particular types of chicken made at certain places. So going to the farmers markets is like
Mm-hmm.
the only real way we can do it. I walked in the
Mm-hmm.
supermarket the other day and I could only get water.
Got it.
And I have like I put all of the instructions that they gave me into like a ChatGPT folder,
Mm-hmm.
and I just gave it all the rules, regulations, what I can and can't eat, and then I just take the like what I'm intolerant in, what I'm allergic to, all that kind of shit, and
Mm-hmm.
then I just take pictures of the back of products.
Mm-hmm.
Or take pictures of products and I ask it if I'm allowed to eat it, and nearly everything I'm allowed to eat.
Based off of the ingredients and what's in it.
Yeah.
Got
And then
it.
that aligns with like I'm lactose intolerant. So they
Mhm.
have like
So
two
is the
tests
majority
that
of the
they do.
population, by the way.
100%. 100%. They have two tests: allergies and intolerances. Intolerances you
Yeah.
can get over, allergies you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
So the intolerances is what they focus on, is like clearing everything out of the system, having the fungus that essentially reacts to the
Mhm.
intolerance,
Mhm.
allowing it to not react for a little
Mhm.
while, and then you can start to reintroduce it again and see if it comes back.
Got it.
But I don't plan on doing that too much. But like best shape, I can feel like
Do you feel more energized? Do you feel more alert?
yeah,
Do you feel, yeah.
yeah. Like I feel at the level of energy I would when I was like fully and also in some of the therapy set, like so much fucking shit came out now I think about it. But one of the other lessons that I learned too is I'd always diagnosed myself as having like a caffeine addiction. I used to be like when I was in Avatar, I used to be obsessed with Red Bull. I would drink
Mhm.
so many fucking Red Bulls, and I was like, it's horrific for you. And then I pivoted to like other forms of caffeine,
Mhm.
teas, coffees, anything. And I realized like, and the therapist kind of like opened my eyes to it. I was like, yeah, I've got a caffeine addiction. And she goes, look, you don't have a caffeine addiction. You have a productivity addiction. Caffeine's
Mhm.
just the physical product that allows you to feel like you're beginning the process of productivity.
Mhm.
And
Wise words.
and I was like, interesting. So then what? And she's like, create another marker, create another ritual, create another whatever. So I just got this like stopwatch thing,
Mhm.
and I have it on my desk, and I have like a 25-minute project. I have a 30-minute project. I click start, and that's my trigger
Mhm.
for the
That's the
inception
new
of productivity.
ritualistic approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of the
So
fucking sip of coffee, you start
instead
the
of feeling
stopwatch.
like I'm taking something that's making me something
Yeah.
superior, you
Yeah,
know?
that's
Um,
very insightful. That is very
yeah.
insightful.
So,
I think that's a
but
powerful tip and pointer for people who may be listening, to be honest. You know, we all
yeah,
feel like we require that crutch or that vice or that the kickstart to what it is. Is it the cup of tea at the morning? It all it is. It's just ritualistic. It's habitual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always take away from it, and what I was saying to myself when I had to kick some habits, right? I hate the phrase and terminology of I have bad habits, right?
Yeah.
I hate that. It does not resonate with me because when you recognize that something is a pattern or that you do it, it's no longer a habit, it's a choice.
Yes.
So
Facts.
you make bad choices. You don't have bad habits. Do you understand? So
And you make
need
that choice
to-
every time.
every single time. But then people take like the easy psych way out of saying, it's just a bad habit. Hit.
Yeah,
You understand? No, you're making bad choice after bad choice after bad choice. So you have to have the conscious awareness and the willpower to say, I just need to stop making bad choices and I need to start making better ones, right? And it's like when you have been intertwined into a way of life and you've constructed a certain manner of how you conduct yourself and how you carry yourself on the day to day, and you turn around and you're 30 something years old, that shit is not easy to kick when you've had these ritualistic approaches and you have these quote unquote bad choices, or for the sake of understanding, these bad habits that you make. After 30 something years, even 20 something years, that shit is not easy to turn over for most people.
No.
They'd rather just succumb and give into that vice because it's easier for them, right? So it's like you have to face the hard truths. And listen, man, more often than not, the truth fucking hurts, you know? And it's not easy to
Yeah.
face that, especially when you have to be critical of yourself. So you really have to look at yourself and be like, you know what? Like, what am I doing here? Like, and so many people lack the foresight, or it's not necessarily lacking the foresight. They just don't care to really acknowledge or accept it or validate the truth of the fact that health starts in the gut. You are what you eat wholeheartedly, right? And our diets have become so based upon refined sugar. There's fucking sugar in everything. The orange chicken that you love is fucking coated in sugar. The dressings that you love on your favorite salad that you think is healthy, you think that most of the time you think that dressing is so delicious because it's filled with sugar. Like, sugar is in absolutely everything. There's a lot of breads that people love that they don't realize it has 2, 3, 4, 5 grams of sugar in it. Like, just continuously
Anything on a shelf,
creating that addictive
anything
cycle.
packaged on a shelf,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, it kind of has
Yeah.
to have it because it's got to stay alive.
100%. 100%. One of my nutritional coaches back in the day actually told me, like, she's like, listen, you're going to hate this, right? Shout out Michelle. She was absolutely amazing, and she wholeheartedly changed my life, especially after my kidney surgery. She was amazing. She told me, look, you're not going to like the truth. This is going to suck. You're going to hate me. At the time, she's like, you're 23 years old. It's probably going to be a little difficult for you to implement, but you'll get it. She's like, if it comes in a package, you can't eat it.
Yeah.
If it's packaged, you can't eat it. So 99% of the time, it's not good for you. If it comes in any type of wrapping, any type of thing like that, basically saying just eliminate every fucking row and shelf and item in a grocery store, which is why I started implementing my farmer's market flow so religiously, you know? Like, you know, my wife and I, we were huge advocates for juicing, for all that stuff. It just, the maintenance of it and all that stuff got crazy to keep up with. But I remember when I was on like a ritualistic flow of juicing like 3-4 times a week. I remember one time walking into my like hairstylist at the time, before, when I still actually had hair, and he was cutting my hair, and I walked in and he took like a step back and he's like, holy shit. And I was like, what? He's like, you're literally glowing. Like, you're literally glowing. Like, I can see it off of you how fucking abundantly healthy you look right now. He asked me what I was doing. I was like, I'm just staying hydrated. I'm juicing all the time. I'm eating clean. I had cleansed out. My wife, who suffered from a major bout of eczema, she's had it her whole life. She gets it terribly. She gets flare-ups on her hands. Like, it'll start to bubble and like use the heat under the skin. And I have little bits of it myself too on like my nose and like my T-zone area where I get little pop-ups of eczema on my skin. She had it so severely when we first got together that like the poor girl would have to wear gloves. Like, she would have to do a whole bunch of stuff. And she went on like a super raw diet, like completely raw vegan diet for like a 4 or 5 month stretch where she was just eating complete raw foods and literally purged it out of her system.
Yeah.
She reduced her eczema rate by 90 some odd percentile. The flare ups were nowhere as bad as what it once was. And it's one of those things that I think we have to be hyper aware of the fact that you literally are what you eat, right? So, have you removed things from the house with sugar and all that shit? Have you like thrown it away, or are you just like strong enough and grounded enough right now to just not
I
eat
just
that
don't
shit?
even give a fuck about it right now. It's just so
Got it.
far from. I'm not where I want to be, and
Mhm.
I'm closer than I was. So it's just it's an addictive, you know, it's an addictive feeling to be
Mhm.
on that wave. So I don't even really have a desire to eat any of it anyway because there's
Yeah.
so much to be gained. I like the only thing that's struggling a little bit right now is I've gone back in my lift capacity at the gym. But that'll come back. That's fine. I'm not worried about it. But it's like that's pretty much it. And I think that's been I think the biggest, and I think it's the same thing with what you're saying about neg and eczema and stuff is like you know pain is happening at all times
Mhm.
anyway.
Mhm.
You have two choices around pain. You have the initial pain that you go through. Like for example, I've got really bad back pain and I've got a really shitty knee and
Mhm.
some shitty ankles from basketball. So
Mhm.
I'm in pain
Was it because they just
often.
crossed you up so crazy all the time, or?
Yeah, it was that, and then it was also like when my knee would hit someone's face from dunking on them so hard, like that's just repetitive,
This
you know.
guy.
It just
Dan
was,
was a
it's
baller for those who don't know. He claims he
it's
had a
one of the
little bit of
challenges
game,
of
but
being
I'm
able
yet to
to.
see it. I ain't seen shit yet, but
It's
he talks a big game about his
it's
ball skills.
when you're literally jumping out of the gym, it becomes challenging
You
at
have literal
times. But
springs in your knees,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. Oh, Dan was here again. There's a hole in the ceiling. Shit.
Wild boy.
But the reason why I say it is like I was going into these physical therapy sessions and it was fucking torture. Like
Mhm.
it was so painful.
Mhm.
You walk in and they've got this like lineup of utensils they're going to use to just torture you.
Mhm.
And going through that process, you're like, this is horrific.
Mhm.
But the pain starts to subside.
Mhm.
The Luke pain, the one that kind of sits there stable, starts to fade away, and they're like, okay, you're gonna
Mhm.
have to strengthen certain areas around your knee. You're
Mhm.
gonna have to do this, that, and the other, and you just sort of go through the process of like stretching for an hour and a half a day, which is not fun.
Mhm.
Pain, but relief follows.
For sure it
Same thing
does.
with even going on this trip in general, like having to call people and say, look, I'm not going to be able to be available next week. What the fuck? We
Mhm.
got this thing happening. I thought we were doing this thing here. Like painful conversations.
Yeah.
If I didn't have those painful conversations, I wouldn't have gone away on the trip. You
Mhm.
know, and
Powerful.
it's like just constantly these like small things that we choose to avoid in our life
Mhm.
because they're easier. You know, a lot of easy decisions produce a hard life. A lot of hard
Mhm.
decisions produce an easy life.
Bar.
And I think it's like the more we program ourselves to start to realize that when you attack shit head on and you fucking fly through the brick wall, you can see what's on the other side because you went through
Mhm.
the wall. So
Mhm.
you're not guessing that it's there.
Mhm.
You get to the result quicker. And I think that's been a big thing is that. And if you are really struggling to make that happen, I highly recommend something like this. Doesn't have to be my life. It's not cheap at
Mhm.
all. But
Mhm.
I recommend going somewhere else and just metaphorically burning the boats.
Mhm.
Put yourself in a situation and scenario where soup is the only option,
Mhm.
where there is only people around that want to help you, where the environment is perfectly curated for you to make the change that you want to make. And then
Mhm.
you can reintroduce yourself back into the existing life where temptation's left, right, and center, but you don't give
Mhm.
a fuck.
Mhm.
You don't care because
Mhm.
the temptation becomes irrelevant because the end game and the addictive feeling of pushing through portions of agony for immense levels of relief and a
Mhm.
heightened version of self, like that energetic vibe that you receive
Mhm.
is is bar none. So you're not really chasing it. Am I going to run my life this way forever? No. Next Friday, I'm going to fucking a fashion show in Berlin, and I'm going to drink a shitload of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Of course,
Like,
bro.
I know what I'm doing now. I know
Mm-hmm.
where I can and can't turn shit on and turn shit off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's still you gotta find that balance point and I know that it's not going to be great the next day after the next one. If it's worth continuing to drink, I will. If it's not, I won't. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm have full agency over my
Mm-hmm.
life, full.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think
Mm-hmm.
just comprehending that, understanding that, realizing that pain can be a super rewarding thing. And I think there's a ton of people pleasers out there right now that are like, damn, that's really difficult. You know,
Yeah, that definitely hits.
especially the conversation of when you concept pain in a version of like conversation,
Mm-hmm.
like avoiding conflict or avoiding a discussion or whatever, like that
Mm-hmm.
shit is painful too. Like the
Mm-hmm.
pain of having that lingering in the back of your mind as an unresolved situation is a
Absolutely,
form
it
of
is.
pain, just like avoiding to go to the fucking doctor or whatever. So
Absolutely.
yeah, massive, massive, massive advocate for My Life. Shout out everybody there. You're all fucking amazing individuals, super fucking
Epic.
talented at what you do. And I think that was the really cool part too, being surrounded by a level of excellence in every corner, whether it's
Yeah.
the people there that were looking to better themselves or
Mm-hmm.
it was the massage therapists that are like
Consummate
literal
professionals.
wizards,
Yeah.
you know? Like
Yeah.
everybody's the best at what they do. Nutritionists know everything under the sun. Just
Yeah.
everybody was top tier. So
Yeah, and it's awesome when it's something so empowering and endearing to you, and you realize the magic in real time. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not something like sprinkle this on your hair and wait 6 months for it to grow out. It's like no real
yeah.
time fucking results right then and there. You know, a breakdown of psych, a reinvigoration of psych, and understanding of self. You know, like that's incredible, man. I'm super happy that
And
you
I
got
think
to experience that.
and I think this ladders back to something I'm going to ask you in a second because I think you said something the other day that I agree with, and I think it aligns a little bit with what we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
We had a conversation the other day around something we were thinking about integrating into our workflow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you were like, yep, we just got to test this shit first because we've got to see if it's too good to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, do you want to just talk a little bit about this notion of like this, if something comes too easy, it's probably not right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just to riff on that a little bit because I think that was a conversation we had the other day that stuck in my brain.
Wholeheartedly. I think, listen, I think in certain dynamics of life, you're allowed to feel like it's too good to be true, and it still be very much present and real for you. I think that's more in a relationship basis. Like, I think on personal peer to peer relationships, like the dynamic of our brotherhood, the dynamic of a marriage, the dynamic of my marriage, your marriage, or whatever it might be, it could feel too good to be true. And that just equates to just happiness and pure balance and pure bliss that does exist, right? But to reflect on what we were talking about, you and I saw a system that was presented to us that was something that we contemplated integrating into our workflow. Okay, one of our many business layers that we run, it was a service that we thought could be incredibly beneficial for the people that we work with, right? Ran the test
Incredibly
run,
beneficial.
incredibly, but like game changing, like
Yeah.
absolutely game changing. It was like introducing the internet to fucking cavemen, basically. right?
Value personified.
And
Like,
it was one of those things where I gave you a call right away, and I was like, "Listen to me. I need fucking 20 minutes of your fucking time because this is unreal what I just came across." I floated the cost of it myself to test it out, see what it is. Always the best way to do it, right? Put your hand on the stove, see if it's able to withstand. And very quickly, within 48 hours of implementing that test, we realized it most certainly was too good to be true. There was a bunch of kinks in the system, a whole bunch of stuff that we saw that came to the forefront that it's just, it ain't it, Chief. But, offering the feedback and insight that I have to this individual who is now trying to upgrade and implement these changes into the system. We'll see where it goes, but it's way too early. It's not something that I'm willing to put my name behind or your name behind. And I think that shows you that more often than not, the easy way out is not it. It's never going to be what resonates and manifests into something that you want. Like, you can think of a quick lick hustle to where you try and sell someone on some shit and you try and do this where it's an outreach or whatever, or you can build something that becomes so desirable that they find you and come to you and you create that systemized approach. I think it summarizes and settles to me as there is very few moments where there are shortcuts to success. There might be shortcuts and summaries of systems in the process of getting to success that you could create, right? You could automate workflows. You can implement certain things that alleviate certain pressures and certain time constraints. And, you know, clearing up a couple seconds here, clearing up a couple minutes there with systems and processes will help you elevate you. And those are the quote unquote shortcuts that you could refer to. But I think we've become a generation that is so focused on instant gratification. Bless you, brother. We've become a generation that is so focused on instant gratification. Like, you put a post up, right? This is a reference to an artist that I work with now. Like, that artist will put a post up and the post will do 80,000 views in 5 hours. And this artist will feel like it's not good enough because it didn't break out and remove the post, right? And the perspective that I try and bring to them is, imagine if 80,000 people were in a room with you, staring at you as you just did what you did. Would you feel like it was effective then? Would you even be able to stand in front of 80,000 people and do what you just did, right? So this generation has summarized success with instant results, virality, monumental moments of breakout and exposure and what it is and whatnot. And we really, as a society, have lost touch with the 10-year build and the 10-year grind of systems and companies that are built over the course of a decade and a half, that then brings fruitfulness for the rest of your life. Like, fucking Jersey Mike's at the top of my mind right now, which sold a couple weeks ago for $1 billion. It's fucking started in 1956, bro. A sandwich shop, right? Like what we were talking about this morning, Duolingo, right? Which was started in 2007, 2008. It went global in 2011. Like, in the last calendar year, they have had a 56% increase to their company's valuation. They are now valued at $14.77 billion. They increased their cash flow last year by 48% to $758 million. Like, you think that when these guys started it, I don't give a fuck how recklessly ambitious and optimistic you are. You think that when they started this shit as an idea, bro, they looked at each other and they said, this is a $15 billion company?
I
Come on.
can't imagine that being, no. It's
impossible. But they grinded, they saw it out, they did what they did. They didn't settle for the instant gratification. They went through the trials, and I guarantee you, if you sit and you talk to those founders now, or the people who are instrumental to that company's success, they will tell you that there was more often times than not where they thought that they were going to fail than they were going to succeed. Guaranteed.
1,000,000%. And I think the other layer worth mentioning on top of that I think is like the extension of it is being valuable is hard. And actually, correction, being valuable is easy one-to-one. Being valuable at scale is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And to build a product that has enough value packed into it to the point where the price is 1/10 of what the value is, which is the equation that I've lived my life on, is like, what is this worth? And then I'm going to charge one of that, you know? And I think that's like that's the game that I've played. But getting to the point and that's exactly what we spoke about with the particular product that we're talking on. The value when sold, exponential. The value when executed, it can find its way to the garbage bin somewhere.
100%.
You know, like, and I think that's the thing that I think is missing in this generation. To latch onto your point, like, we as a society right now move so fucking quick. We're better at selling something than we are doing it. And if you can just go through the pain and agony of getting good at the doing, the selling thing is very easy to learn, or you can outsource the selling thing to someone who's a specialist at that. But get really good at the doing side of it, because if you have the ability to be valuable, and you have the ability to be valuable and not just sell value, your life is you can make good money selling value,
100%.
but you can make life-changing money
Yeah.
being valuable.
100%.
And I think there's a clear distinction between that. And coming from the advertising world, if I see one more fucking agency called Performance Pinnacle, and they go out and sell performance ads and never run an ad before in their life, you know, what do you expect to happen?
100%.
Your first 10 clients were really upset with you,
Yeah.
you know, because
Yeah.
you sold a product at a higher price point than the value you provided.
100%.
And I think we're moving through the services that we're touching and the products that we're creating and the people that we're working with, and we're auditing and assessing, is your value provided exponentially higher than the price you're charging? If so,
Absolutely.
let's fucking run it.
Let's
do
run it.
something,
Yeah.
you know? But if it's not, then get to work, get good at what you're doing, and then we'll apply our services and our skill sets to what you want to do later on. But
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
a huge thing that's missing in today's society, is like, how do I get to 80,000 views? And the best way to get to 80,000 views is to fucking earn them.
Yeah.
Like, put
Yeah.
enough value in the post. If
And
you
don't
want
take that
a
shit for
million
granted.
views,
Yeah.
100%. And I think that the analogy that I think you used is bang on. The analogy of, like, let's just grab 80,000 people and put them in somewhere, you know? And then let's grab and put them somewhere, and then give you the opportunity to communicate with them in a fully curated, edited, perfectly sculpted way.
Yeah.
Not a live performance where shit can go wrong, but you have the privilege of being able to communicate with that many people without a fuck up.
Yes. Impossible.
You know? So it's an extra layer of luxury on top of it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I think that's a great note to end on. And I just wanted to put a random note in here that is dedicated to a very particular individual, right? I have a dear friend of mine who loves our podcast, tells me that he watches it all the time. And I just want to end on this note, if it's okay. He's going through some serious shit in his life right now. And he's coming off of a major breakup of a long-standing relationship that ended in a very turbulent manner. He's coming out of a career that he thought was locked and loaded for him, and it seems like it's all crumbling on him right now. And just a note of endearment to my friend who I know is listening. You have to recognize that you have to stay grounded in the faith of what the universe is setting you up for, and recognize that it is not a setback, but a setup for something greater that is coming. And at this moment in your life, you need to ground yourself in good and constructive habits. Keep the fresh, oxygenated blood pumping into you. Stay active in the gym. Stay grounded. Keep the faith of what's coming for you, and use this transitional stage of your life to manifest the next level up. Set the desires and intentions for what you really want to achieve, where you really want to arrive, and you will arrive there. And discussing things with me and telling me that you feel like everything has slowed down and this and that or whatever, ground yourself in the truth of recognizing that slow season is seeding season, and you are planting your seeds right now to blossom into something absolutely beautiful and amazing. And I just want you to know that you are loved, and everything that you are going through will pass, and you got to stay grounded and stay strong. And just a message I wanted to drop for a certain individual who I know is listening.
I have absolutely no idea who this person is. Actually, I actually don't. But
You really don't.
the only thing that I would add is I'm profoundly excited for you.
Yes.
Chaos happens before clarity. And
Amen.
the sooner that you can attack the chaos and come out the other side of the chaos with a six pack, with a
Amen.
whole new skill set under your belt because you studied it or you hustled to get it or whatever the case may be. On the other side of that is a form of clarity that will shift and change your life forever. So these moments
Yes.
right here, this fucking mess that you're feeling like you're in, it's part of the process of living a fucking sick life.
Amen, bro. It's a great note, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you always being the greatest co-host in the world. It's good to have you back, my brother, clarified and clear and ready to dominate. And we have some exciting things going on in our lives that I am very much looking forward to conquering and fucking crushing with you all the way through. And I love you to death, bro. It's always great to have you. I appreciate the conversation. Some great notes on this one, and we will see you all next time.
Love you too, brother. Let's run it.
Ciao, ciao.